I'm Jolyon Warwick James, and I'm from the Australian Antique and Art Dealers Association. We're here to talk about the values of items, and I'm going to try and see if I can give you some pointers that are going to help you to detect the things that might possibly be valuable and that should be drawn to the attention of some expert who can tell you just how valuable they are. Something doesn't have to be old to be valuable, though obviously if it is old, there aren't so many of them around. And clearly, if something is brand new, lots of it or of them can be made. So there is a slight element of rarity in the fact that something is old. Things that people collect fall into sort of slightly different categories. Some things fit into the category of furnishings, and people will collect paintings which are very visible for everybody to see. And in the old days, of course, you used to have your silver stacked up on a sideboard, and the very quality of the sideboard and the furniture you had was itself a statement of your good taste, your prowess, and your wealth. And so people collected things like that. But there are other sorts of things people collect, and those are the sort of smaller things which may possibly be on display in a showcase. It's very difficult for the untrained eye to decide how valuable something is. And I think a much better way of looking at it is, why don't you have a few clues as to what might be valuable and what might you need to draw to the attention of an expert who can then tell you whether it is valuable and hopefully just how valuable it is. So I think the object of the exercise is to look for the clues that are going to alert you to the fact that something might be valuable. And of course, condition is a very important aspect of it. We always want something to be as close to its original condition as is possible. We don't want it to be hacked around, later altered, affected. We like the original condition. But that doesn't mean to say that just because something has been repaired that it's worthless. It doesn't quite work like that. And perhaps I can show you, for example, this tea service. Now, to me, it has more value than maybe to you because it belonged to my parents for many years. But it still has a value. But what you may not have noticed, if you didn't look carefully, is that the lid has actually been repaired. And it's got two little staples in the bottom to hold the two parts together, which is how they used to repair ceramics. Not today. Today they have a much better system of using glues, and technology has improved. Now, the fact that it's been repaired does significantly reduce the value, but that doesn't mean to say it's worthless at all. It just means to say that it is slightly less value than a perfect example. Let's have a look at some silver. Now, it's not very likely that you'll be able to work out first time round what an item of silver is worth. But there are some clues that will be able to tell you that an item is silver, and that should be a red rag saying, hang on, we need to seek expert opinion on this. This could be valuable. Let's have a look at what some of those clues are. Well, first of all, it's nice and shiny. Not everything that's shiny is silver, but it's a fairly good clue that it might be silver because it's shiny. And if we turn it upside down, we can also see it's got the characteristic hallmarks, which if you purchase the right book, you might be able to decode, and that would give you a few clues. It would tell you that this little mug here is dated 1719. But that isn't going to tell you what it's worth, but it does alert you to the fact that this does have a considerable value. So we have to go somewhere to an expert to find out just what that value is. The value to me is probably slightly more than the value to anybody else, because this was my grandfather's christening mug. No, he wasn't alive in 1719. It was second-hand when he got it. But it has a whole lot of meaning to me. And when I die, I certainly want this to go to the right person. So I'm going to write in my will and say that this is my grandfather's christening mug, and I'm going to specify who I feel it should go to. Let's have a look at these. Now, these are rather interesting. 3 balls. But they're a little bit more than that. They are billiard balls. And they actually came out of a fairly well-known billiard hall in Prague. And I don't know I'm allowed to tell you how they got here because there are very strict regulations about importing and exporting ivory. And if you do that, you need a certificate called a CITES certificate. Now, this does affect the value. If things are difficult to ship overseas, then their value is very much limited to their local market. The story about them belonging in a Prague billiard hall is a very nice story, but unfortunately I can't prove it. And if you're going to try and attach some importance to something in terms of where it's come from, you do need very definite documentation to prove the point. For example, if you're saying that the nightdress you've got was worn by Lady Hamilton, who was so well known to Lord Nelson, then that makes it extremely valuable, but only if you can really quite clearly prove that it was worn by her and not one that your own grandmother just happened to chuck out the other day. So these do have a value. They are ivory, and if you see something like this, you do need to get an expert opinion. But what are they sitting in? Well, that's rather interesting, because this actually is a little wooden bowl, which is really rather nice, and you may have detected that in fact it is a collection plate from church. If you go to church, you are supposed to throw your contribution into this little bowl. And it's a very nice bowl, but it doesn't really have an awful lot of value. Very attractive, very nice for putting billiard balls in, but there are a number of them in existence, and people make their contributions to the churches in different ways now, and the communion plates aren't all that desirable in churches today, or frequent I should say, and so there are a number of them available, and they can be acquired for a relatively small sum of money. This is a kind of thing that can often be found in an attic, an old cricket bat. And this cricket bat used to belong to me. And I'm sure I scored lots of runs with it, but I'm afraid it isn't worth an awful lot of money. It's in not terribly good condition, and today I think technology has improved the cricket batting weapon. However, if it were shown to have been belonging to Don Bradman, then it would be worth a very great deal of money. But that entirely depends upon being able to demonstrate or prove very clearly that it did belong to Don Bradman. If you can do that, you have a very valuable cricket bat. If you're like me, you've got just a very warm, fuzzy feeling from an old memento. What do you do if you've read the signs and you think you've detected something that could be worth a considerable sum of money? Well, I think you must go to a professional and seek some professional advice, and if that person can't himself answer the question, he will know where to point you in the right direction so that you can find out what the item is worth. I would suggest that you contact someone in the Australian Antique and Art Dealers Association and seek their opinion, and they'll be able to either answer your question directly or point you in the direction of someone who can.